Hi, we're the Heart Collective based in Los Angeles, California, streaming through the universe, and I'm Taryn.
I'm Rhoda.
I'm Liz B. We are reframing definitions through heart-centered conversations.
Our topic today is to transmute, which is to change in form, nature, or substance.
It's one of my favorite words lately because being a breathwork facilitator, you see like memes that say, breathe in love, exhale hate, or something. And it's like, no. We're meant to transmute. Right? That's what we're born here for. And as light workers, if you're watching this, you're most likely one. I think that's our job, is to take the dense energies and use our hearts and our energies to alchemize that denseness into light.
I get it. That's why this feels exhausting a lot of times.
It's a lot of freaking work.
Because the more we get exposed to things, I think that we come to the realization and really the exposure of the density, of what we're dealing with. And I feel like just in choosing to see certain things and to acknowledge, it's already a process of transmutation, of giving it a place.
Being seen is kind of the act of transmutation, right? Yeah. I mean, I see that a lot when I doing breathwork facilitation, being a witness to someone's pain and trauma. That is the healing element, I find, because you could cry alone in a room and that is healing. But when you're met with someone who holds space for you and sees you and accepts you and loves you in that pained moment, that's when that happens. The magic of transmutation happens.
Doesn't seem like we have a lot of opportunities for that, right? Where you were just describing, like being seen in those moments and heard and accepted. I was at this week at a bereavement call, and most people who spoke talked about how they didn't have anybody to talk to about their pain, about their grief, the sadness that they were feeling, and it got me to reconnect with the purpose of my death midwifery work, to really usher a new way of us dealing with death, the only inevitable in this life. And how potent it felt for those people talking, and then to be able to speak about how grateful they felt for that space where they could really come and just really talk about what they were feeling. I mean, just simple as that. There's no fixing. There's nothing that can be done. That person who, has passed away that they were talking about is not going to come back. But how much they looked forward to that moment where they could be heard and seen and just accepted. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's a universal need for all beings. And unfortunately, I don't believe that it's embedded into many of our cultures or lives or families. And I think that as we transmute and process and become aware of and awaken to a lot of the way things have been constructed and why, I think we'll have the opportunity, I hope, to create something that does allow for that.
Yeah.
This is such a powerful experience.
And it's so difficult most of the time to be with our own pain,
Mm-hmm.
yet to hold somebody else in that space of accepting their pain. And we're doing this collective shadow work now, I guess more than we've done in our lifetimes, to really witness it on a scale that's beyond our own personal processes. But how can we hold space for each other so we can then transmute, so we can elevate what inevitably we're all going through? It's
Right.
not to not go through what we're going through, but simply to move forward, right? Continue to move forward. And I mean, inevitably we're doing it, but could we put more intention and then do it more gracefully?
Mm-hmm. And really be aware and honor the process.
Yeah.
And you know, as you said, Rhoda, to sit with your own grief is one thing, and an important thing to be able to do, but to hold that space for others, it becomes a more powerful experience.
Yeah. And to
So-
allow someone else to,
Yes.
to see you that way too.
Very vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And to feel safe in that. And I feel like a lot of chaos and pain and darkness is purging right now. And to be able to hold space, maybe not understand someone else's process, but to hold space for that, I think that, and give yourself that opportunity as well. I think it goes a long way right now.
I do feel like we're lacking collectively a more balanced approach to the shadow work that we're doing, in the way that we're trying to process or transmute it through our own minds and our thinking and our rational experience. And it's really a miracle when two hearts can meet. There's a story that I came across recently about the writer for The Little Prince. I don't know how to
Very
pronounce.
sad.
Yes, I don't speak
Antoine,
French,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
Anton Saint something, and they were having a war, and I don't know the veracity of this story. I don't know if it's true or not, but it was so beautiful, and it makes me think about it. He was captured during a war, and when he was in captivity, he was shaking, and he was trying to get a cigarette out of his pocket, and he finally did it and realized he didn't have matches, and so he asked the guard, "Can you light up my cigarette?" And in that moment, the guard, as he's getting the matches, their eyes met, and they paused, and something happened in that moment where they couldn't take their eyes off each other. So all of a sudden, the prisoner became a person, the guard became a person. So their roles kind of, literally
Dissolved,
faded.
Yeah.
And then the guard asked him, "Do you have kids?" And he said, "Yes. But what good it is to think about him, because I'm never going to see a future with him." And and then he asked the guard, "Do you have kids?" And the guard said yes, and showed them pictures and talked about their future. I messed up a little bit because the guard speaks first about, his kids and their future, and then he says, "Yes, I have kids, but we'll get us to think about that since I'm not going to share a future with them." And at that moment, more of that role disappeared because two hearts met. And he immediately opened the door, got the keys, opened the door, and ordered him to run and to
Beautiful.
leave.
Oh, so that's amazing. I've never heard that story before.
And it was saying that it was just a testimony to the power of two hearts meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the roles dissolved, the barriers dissolved,
It's beautiful.
and that man chose to do what was right
Right.
versus what was expected of him.
Yeah.
I remember 2 months ago when they were having all the riots because of George Floyd. And when it was really it was really combustive everywhere. And I want to say it was in Missouri somewhere, but I could be wrong. Kentucky, I don't remember. Few black men surrounded a policeman and didn't allow for other people.
Oh, right. They protected him.
They protected him. He got lost from his squad. And to me, that's a testimony of hearts being activated and knowing that this is not expected of me to do, but I'm doing it because this is the right thing to do.
The right way.
And to me, that moment, I remember seeing the pictures and just, wow, what a moment for transmutation, right? Because all of a sudden you are exposing to others the power of allowing something bigger than yourself and literally transmute a pattern, a condition, an expectation, and immediately bringing it to the upper room.
Right.
And yeah, it made me just now think of those two stories. And
such a beautiful story, and so timely that I think you shared about, well, both of them. But I think that that's so important right now. I think that what we're most responsible for in our bodies is to own and be accountable for our own energy and action and words. And easier said than done, especially the energy with what's going on right now. But I think that one of the highest aspirations is to see humanity in others. And see good in other beings that may be different than us. Like right now, Liz has a pit bull in her lap. And a lot of people would look at this dog and say, oh, that's a vicious dog. Why do you have that around? Or you see someone who's in opposition to your thoughts. And we all have these preconceived ideas and constructs about what the policeman is or what the, armed protester is.
Right.
Or what the, dog who's used for fighting is, or the person who disagrees with us is. And just to remember that being that expression of humanity is sometimes the highest action. And it can inspire others. And that's what we're all here to do.
The phrase spell breaking came to me as you were talking, both of you, because I think there's so many spells that we've been living with. And as a truth seeker and a truth teller, it's our job to point out those spells, but also break them. And that's the transmutation, that's the magic that happens.
So true.
Because when you stop being the way that you are perceived and see someone else other than what they're perceived, that's breaking the spell. Bringing it back to presence and just seeing things without any filters or beliefs or ideas. Like you said, seeing humanity.
It's true. I know that you've done the landmark training as well, Rhoda, and we've discussed this, but one of the things, and I know you've brought this up in another episode, but one of the things that is an interesting process that they ask everyone to go through, I believe in their advanced course, is to unpack your perceptions about yourself. This is how people perceive me. This is why people like me, and this is why people don't like me. And I think that those are just identity constructs. They're not truths.
Right.
And I think it's an important process for everyone to look at that within themselves and transmute that. There may be truth in that, but I promise you it's not all of it is true.
Yeah.
And it goes for the way we perceive others as well.
Right. It's like letting go of labels.
Yeah.
And all those things that we like to put things into boxes and define them in certain ways.
Sure. And it's not a way that allows us to live in alignment and integrity with truth.
Makes me think of family dynamics and why families are so prickly at times, right?
Good word.
Because we've created identities for everybody and ourselves in that dynamic. And so are we really meeting that person at that moment, or are we meeting the idea that we have that that person is, of who that person is? This is
So
my
true.
brother who's always late, who always does that, or who
Mm.
always says this, who never steps up, or and so
Right.
we're creating this reality together of one another, of ourselves in those places. And wow, you just talked about breaking the spell, and you just gave me another idea for my daily prayers, because I think that affirmative prayer is so powerful.
Absolutely.
And so you just activated something in me. I'm excited. Pray tomorrow again. I'll pray tonight anyways, but like my morning prayer is like my little
Transmutation.
Beautiful.
or spell break and transmutation and
Yeah.
intention setting and like really clearing, because sometimes I imagine, what if right now, in the midst of everything that we're living, everybody was, instead of going out and fighting and screaming and burning and breaking and killing and hating, we were all at home praying. And then there's some people, because I've presented this idea, well, there's a place for social justice. What if we could create social justice through prayer? Or would we even have come to this place if everybody could have such trust in something deeper than their experiences, right? That every time of chaos and like uncertainty, that was where we would turn ourselves to.
It's beautiful.
And we would let that most high, however you want to name it, then take from there. And it's just a contemplation I've had about the charged times that we have lived, that we've been living through. And yeah.
That's really beautiful. And I think that many of us are conditioned to be addicted to sensory experience, whether it's entertainment, television, sex, alcohol, drugs, feedback from constantly being around others and not being alone or just with ourselves. And I think that in that, there's the ability to lose trust in, I mean, for me, it's God. For someone else, it can be source or universe, but I'm just inserting the word God here for myself, but to trust in God's process. And it doesn't mean if you see something is wrong, not to speak out or take action. It's not saying to step back always, but to not be addicted to always taking part in something and being angry at something and being, having to have vengeance. And maybe there's a balance, what you mentioned, Liz, between that. And what would it look like if people were in prayer to nature or God or the universe, and instead of having that addiction to action without thought.
Reactive.
Yes, reactive.
Yeah.
Reactiveness.
Which is part of being in a trauma loop.
Which makes me think that we haven't created outlets for people to express their
Right.
feelings. Like we go back to your work as a breathwork facilitator and really creating that space for people to have a chance to process
Right.
so much, lifetimes of unprocessed, moments and loops and situations, circumstances, and all of that. So then it makes total sense that we would have a society that the minute they're given the opportunity, they'll just, do whatever they can to just let that out.
Oh, yeah.
There's no outlet for it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And you're quite right. I believe it's it's lifetimes and generations of not having that have been addressed or processed.
Yeah, oppression,
Right.
and guilt and shame.
Oh,
and,
yes.
I mean, there's just so much.
The worst kind of cruelty.
Yeah.
So I think that now is the time to allow those energies and emotions to transmute and collectively and individually find out ways of doing so that maybe don't involve violence.
Yeah. Just take a pause. A pause.
Take a pause, Evie.
Right? I don't think they're coming back.
They're not coming back for you. I'm so sorry to tell you that.
They're not coming back not today.
The deer. We're talking about our dear visitors, friends.
Not today.
Yeah, and a dog that very much wants to run away and live with them.
I do too, Evie.
Who doesn't, Evie?
I know. May we be allowed to feel more, transmute more, transform more, so we're not attached to the old ways. We can create new ways, new pathways, new connections, manifesting new ways of living, relating. One of the best ways I found to transmute is to bless. We've talked about this before in other episodes, but if I find a way to bless something, a situation, circumstance, person, relationship, something that's stressing me out or consuming me, it generally alleviates the charge. And I feel like that alone, it's somewhat a transmutational process.
That was from the forgiveness episode. And I think it is the same process, right?
Yes.
Where you look at the situation or person and you think, why is this being presented to me? What is my lesson in this? Why am I being shown this?
Why, Evie? That's what Evie's thinking now. Why was I shown the deer? If I cannot
Family.
skip with them in the woods. Why? Now I have to transmute these feelings I'm having of not being adequate for them. You're perfect just the way you are. You can cry. She cried. I cried. It was so hard.
It was so bad of my mean mom and aunties to keep me away. Yeah, and it's a very emotionally charged time right now, and energies and emotions are running high. And I think that process is, there's a lot to be said for holding more and more light and positive energy charge, and then I think being able to share that with those around you and be kind of a beacon of light, and it's so needed right now. And to just work through those energies and let it out and process it, but you know, be in a space where you can be that center still point.
I have to say that, you know, part of the process of transmuting is allowing for whatever comes to come through, right? And it's not going to always feel blissful and light-filled and all of that. I find myself having a lot of really dense moments with a lot of really charged emotions, and what has kept me moving is just to let those moments be what they are. And really go forward and then ride them like waves, you know, and then they'll come and then they're like, oh,
Sure.
it was good. And then I feel like there's something about that process that allows, like you were saying, for more light, right?
Yes.
Because it's almost like a clearing of some sort. Then you're able to be more authentic with carrying that and being a beacon
Right.
of clarity and centeredness, like you said.
I get the picture of like how we walk around and we hold trauma in our bodies and we're not allowing it to flow through.
Right.
We're like creating these dams and holding these dams that get bigger and bigger and bigger. But when we allow it to flow, then fresh water comes down from the top of the river.
Right, and we have the capacity to hold more light. And when we look at animals in the natural world, daily they're confronted with life-threatening moments, maybe throughout the day. They live in life and death scenarios.
Yeah.
And so something that I learned that was very interesting, a lot of prey animals, zebra, deer, horses, after they have a trauma of being chased by a predator, they'll take 60, 90 seconds and just shake everything off their physical body and move it out of their like whole energy field, and then they just let it go, and then they go drink water, eat grass, it's gone, it's done.
Right.
And we don't have a structure or a process in place as a society that I've experienced. So personally, I think a process that's really worked for me, touching upon what you both said, is allowing those emotions and also accepting that it is just an experience and it is just an emotion. Emotions are not constant.
Right.
Yeah.
If
Like
we
the weather.
process them and let them go,
Yeah.
Correct.
it is just an emotion and it will pass. And letting it be and say, okay, it may not be this way tomorrow or the next day or a week from now, but I'm going to let it be what it is now because there's something in this for me.
Correct.
As painful and as horrific as it may be, there's some medicine in that for us when we go through it. So I think that's an interesting process to be able to go through.
I'd like to find a quote to read. Can we do that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't know it off by
Please.
heart, but I think it's so timely and so
Yeah.
precise. It's a Rumi quote. The guest house. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
Beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Oh my God, Rumi is my lover. Beloved. By allowing, we're able to transmute, change form, shape, or substance. Thank you for spending time with us today. One more time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are the Heart Collective.
The Heart Collective is an initiative based in Los Angeles, California, and working globally to foster self-actualization and earth peace via self-peace through our nonprofit offerings and workshops. You can find us online at heartcollective.org, on Instagram at heart.collective, and wherever you find your favorite podcast.